Welcome back to season 31 of 7-Eleven Junior Hockey Magazine. I'm your host, Gino Reda. Time now for the CJHL Report. The Canadian Junior Hockey League brings together 115 teams in the 9 Junior A leagues, involving over 2,500 players from right across the country. Joining us now is James Faulkner, who's the play-by-play voice of the Truro Bearcats and also the Director of Communications of the Maritime Junior Hockey League. James, welcome to the show. How do you juggle all this stuff?
Very carefully. I've been doing the play-by-play for the Bearcats now for, I guess this is my 12th season doing that. So I got started pretty early with that. And about 3 seasons ago, I was asked to join as Director of Communications. I work in my day job, because I have that as well, work in radio in Truro, Nova Scotia. So just kind of natural to switch over to the communications side for that.
Wow, that's quite the schedule. All right, let's get to it. Let's start with Truro. The Bearcats just beat the Amherst Ramblers 4-1 in the first round of the Maritime Junior Hockey League playoffs. Tell us about the series and what went right for Truro.
Really, Truro, once we resumed play in February, just were firing on all cylinders. After the trade deadline, made a couple of big acquisitions, and just everything just clicked for them, really. But it all really came together with Maverick Goyer, goaltender, who was acquired from Summerside in a big kind of goaltender swap with the Western Capitals. Both players involved ended up making the respective all-star teams, which was pretty fun to see. But Maverick Goyer really helped solidify the goaltending. Truro has always been known as a great defensive team because of head coach Sean Evans. And they were just able to take that into the playoffs. And Amherst and Truro might be, I mean, for my money, it's the biggest rivalry in the Maritime Hockey League. And, they all close games. There really wasn't one that kind of ran away from either team, but Truro did just enough on the scoring end to get things done.
So what's next for Truro?
Truro now take on the Valley Wildcats, who upset the Yarmouth Mariners, who were the top seed in the division. And again, outstanding goaltending in that series as well. So I'm expecting a lot of like 3-2, 2-1 scores in this one. Valley, this is only their second time in a division final since they moved to that location, and it's really exciting for the fans down there. And we're just kind of working on hammering out the schedule. Hopefully this weekend things will get rolling, but very excited to see how that's going to go.
I want to ask you about the Playdowns this year, because things are a little bit different. I mean, you've been doing this now since 2010, so you've been following it. But this year we're going back to nationals. We lost nationals for a couple of years because of the pandemic. We're going back to it, but it's going to be a little bit different across the country this year. Share with our listeners this new format and what you think of it.
Well, so there were regional championships before across the country. There were 4 of them. That was going to be down to 3 this year. And for us here in the Maritimes, it was the Fred Page Cup, which was the CCHL, the Quebec League, and ourselves, plus the host teams. So you'd have 4 teams playing a mini tournament, and the winner of that would go to nationals. And we were actually set to host the Fred Page Cup this season in Summerside. It was announced recently that the CJHL is going to just a 10-team format for a national championship instead of what you would normally have or had in the past of 4 teams. So every league is going to send their league champion, and the host team for the national championship will be there as well. So it's a little bit different, and certainly with making the announcement late in the season, it did kind of affect some teams. I mean, they may not have loaded up quite as much because we were looking at a situation where, say, Summerside is in the division final on their side, but say it was Truro and Summerside in the league final. Both of those teams, regardless of how the league final went, would end up going to that regional tournament. Then you play from there, and winner goes to the national. Now it's only the league champion that will end up going to the Centennial Cup. And I mean, it's exciting to have that back in the format, and we'll have to see how all that plays out.
Here's a question for you.
Sure.
You're involved in the league, you're involved in the communications Maritime Junior Hockey League as well, but you're also a member of the media. When you look, and we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, this was kind of a forced adjustment this year to go to a 10-team tournament, but there's also a long-term appeal of what that could look like. Give me some thoughts, from the community level of a team and their aspirations to get to nationals, and then from a broadcast perspective on what nationals could look like under this format. Not ideal for the local teams, but it makes for some great television down the road.
Yeah, like I said, it really kind of adjusted the way teams were thinking on the fly. You're entering the playoffs, and every league is entering their playoffs, looking at things a little different, where they may have a second chance if they were hosting the regional championship that year. So yeah, for us again, with Summerside, who were supposed to host the Fred Page Cup, that really kind of adjusted things for that. And back in 2012-13, Truro actually hosted the Fred Page Cup, and it was, oddly enough, Summerside and Truro. They played in the league final, followed each other to the final of the Fred Page Cup, and then Summerside actually were hosting RBC at that time, the RBC Cup, the national championship. So you kind of follow it along, and it took a little bit of the stress off. Teams obviously wanted to win every step along the way, but they knew, okay, if we fall, we're still going to move on to the next level. Now you don't have that. There is something to be said, certainly, for the fact, hey, if you win the league, you go to the national championship, and it's cut and dry just like that. From a broadcast perspective, I think having a 10-team tournament is very exciting. I think that format is going to lend itself very well to competition, to the level of play. It also opens up a few more games as well, where you may have only had the round robin tournament to decide what your semifinal and final of a national championship are going to be. Now, I mean, I assume every team is going to end up having, play every other team along the way there. So a lot more games against your league champions. So it should be best on best all the way through. And yeah, the television and the broadcast side of it should be very exciting to follow.
All right, before I let you go, put your local hat back on. How do you like Truro's chances of making it to nationals?
I think that if Truro can get through Valley, a team that I think a lot of people overlooked in the first round and are kind of overlooking in this one as well, I think they have a pretty good shot as to whoever comes out on the other side. It should be Summerside. They were ranked pretty much number 3 in the country for most of the season. They're the team to beat, but as you know, at any level of hockey, all it takes is one hot goaltender, and you can go very far in any kind of playoff format. And I think Truro, just the way they play defensively and the goaltending, stand a very, very good shot at representing the Maritime Hockey League.
James, great catching up. We appreciate you taking the time to join us. We liked your insights. Thanks for this.
Thanks very much.
That was James Faulkner, who's the play-by-play voice of the Truro Bearcats and also the Director of Communications for the Maritime Junior Hockey League. And that wraps up this week's CJHL Report, the Canadian Junior Hockey League. Your future is here. Still inside 7-Eleven Junior Hockey Magazine, he was the captain of the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds for the final year of his junior play, and now he's patrolling the blue line for the Buffalo Sabres. We'll check in with Cullen Miller in this week's edition of Where Are They Now? You're listening to Canada's only nationally syndicated junior hockey radio show, season 31 of 7-Eleven Junior Hockey Magazine. And don't forget, you can listen and subscribe to the complete podcast by checking out any of your favorite podcast platforms.